Welcome to Untangling Life. I'm Hattie Willis.
And I'm Andy Ayim.
And today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very present for me right now in my life. Transitional periods. I am in a big one. And we're going to go to some street interviews first to see what it means to other people, and then we'll share lots ourselves.
Good idea.
What do you think the hardest part about being in a transitional phase of life is?
After a breakup, not feeling like the old you or the new you yet. Feeling like you should be doing something but not knowing what, it's not clear.
Uncertainty, like waiting to hear back from a job interview.
This one's hit me quite hard. And there's so much I want to touch on. Do you have somewhere you want to start before I talk too much?
I know where you want to go. So I'm going to intentionally pick a different place to start because I know we're going to get there.
I think it's a good plan.
Is that okay?
Love it.
Awesome. In between jobs.
Yeah.
Purgatory.
Yeah.
Right? Like, especially depending on how you left off that last chapter. Like if you're made redundant or, you were cut because there was job cuts, it can leave a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth and it can make you feel like you start questioning your worth and your identity because so much of our identity is wrapped up in our job roles. So it's like before even thinking about what's ahead and what's next, you kind of got to deal with and face into what I've just experienced and come from.
I think second to that, it's really hard to manage your hope. So the reflective part, maybe you're bringing some baggage into that transitional period, maybe your confidence is taking a hit, but there's also this point of I think wanting to be hopeful for the future, but actually not knowing what's coming. And I think that uncertainty theme came up a lot, and it brings to mind, my dad's currently moving country, and I talked to him, he's so excited because he's so clear on what it looks like. They've already got the house, they've had it for a couple of years, they've been moving there. He's so excited because he can really visualize that future. Whereas for some of us, it's a deep, I find it much more unsettling to be in a change period because I know what I had before and I don't know what's coming. And even if I'm excited, I'm always trying to manage the other thing that springs to mind is like between moving house. Yeah. And you're trying to manage your expectations.
The ambiguity.
Exactly. I find that really destabilizing. Yeah.
I remember there's one job I've had when I was younger that I got let go of. And I felt terrible in the moment. One, because I felt like I didn't have a great manager, and that manager didn't spend time getting to know me. And it was my first job that I had after my dad passed away. And I think I was misinterpreted because he didn't get to know me, and I wasn't opening up to him as a consequence because he didn't build that trust. So it turned into a conversation of like, we can chalk this down as a temporary experience. It didn't really work for us. No performance review or opportunity to improve. And my first reaction was anger. I was frustrated. I was really angry. And it almost came into like, watch, I'm going to prove you wrong. But it came from a very angry and negative place in a way.
Which isn't very, doesn't feel very you.
Yeah, but looking context-wise, given that my dad passed away, that was my first job. I lasted 3 months. I got let go of. I fully understand why I was in that space. But also at that time.
We've both lost a parent, and I hope no one listening has, but probably some have. I think there probably will be a recognition that grief period is such a transitional period as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When your complete normal is gone overnight, and all it seeps into. And I think we had breakup come up as, I do think breakups are a form of grief, not the same, but they definitely are. Where all your little day-to-day things that you're used to, your habits, who you call, who you text, all of that just gets lifted overnight. Or maybe dragged out, but it gets lifted. And I think to your point, I think that's a really important point. In these transitional periods when we're not feeling like ourselves, we don't always act like ourselves either.
And I remember in that period, I asked myself am I really self-aware? Do I know what my strengths are? Do I know what I'm good at? And it set me on this course of starting to ask people.
How old were you?
25.
That's amazing.
And I started asking people what do you think I'm good at? What comes easy to me but difficult to others? It was that point where I started asking that question of others to really get to know what my values are, my strengths are, so I could be more intentional on the next job that I took. And I remember that next interview for that next job, I said, I'm going to return to management consulting, which was like my first professional job before that one that I got sacked. So I wanted to return to something that I knew well. I knew that I was good at, but I wanted an entrepreneurial environment where I could help build a business.
Yeah.
Those are my two big requirements there. And then my third thing is I'm going to show up differently than I've shown up in any professional job so far, because I want to be 100% my most authentic self because of the shortness of life, and I don't know how long I'm going to be here for. So that was the switch for me when I was like, right, I'm going to show up differently, but I'm still going to deliver as much quality as I can. And I remember in the interview, like, I knew they were going to ask me this. There's certain questions in interviews you have to get good at answering, because you know 100% of interviews are going to ask you. And one of those is, tell me about yourself. Classic. They have to ask that question. But you have agency over how you want to answer that question. And I remember saying in that interview, I'm going to tell you about myself through three different lenses. So it's called Why Me in Three. This is what my families would say about me. This is what my friends would say about me. This is what my ex-colleagues would say about me. And I know this because I asked them this question, and I took them down a beautiful journey of storytelling and telling them the journey that I've been on, and it's changed the course of that whole interview. And I know that they hired me because there was a difference there that they were attracted to.
And also a level of self-reflection that they could probably see quite immediately in the self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And I think
that self-awareness, I think, is an important step when we're making transitions. We'll go through some steps as we go through this conversation, but
I think also the reason we wanted to do this as a theme is because so often when you go through the hard process of working out what you want, there is a transitional phase. You're letting go of stuff, you're stepping into stuff, whether that's new job, new relationship, new home, new way of working, new family life, whatever it is.
And I think they can all require different things in order to transition, actually.
Yeah, I think that's
I just said self-awareness, but I was actually talking about a job. When I'm like, I want to know my value, I want to know my worth, I want to know. But I don't know if it is as relatable to when you said house. For
fine.
Relationship, you could be.
Yeah.
But for house, maybe not. Moving house.
No, true. True.
I just realised that when you just said that.
But I think maybe we in some ways the ones we want to focus on more in this are the ones that are more about like a deliberate choice, and moving countries, moving location, maybe not moving house. There is a point at know what's special about you, know what you can connect with, know what you can bring to your new community.
Absolutely.
I think if we're right about what we think listeners are going to be joining us for, it's often because you're going to be either in the process of making these like very deliberate choices, you're someone who's already in the practice of it but wants to keep it up, or you're looking at your life going, I want something to change. You might know what it is and you might not, but I think either way of like there is always going to be transition.
I agree. I think another step when I talked about like self-awareness and knowing your worth and your value is like self-responsibility. Like, do I own my journey? Like, is it happening to me or is it happening for me? And that's not always easy to answer.
You know what's, no, I'm only going to say what's mad. Sometimes I feel like you're reading my mind, but from a completely like, this is where I think I hope it's interesting, but I think we come at things from quite different perspectives sometimes. So you're thinking about like agency, and the thing I was about to say next was going to be, and we should remember that sometimes you don't have a choice in being pushed into a transition, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So I keep going with your thought, and then let's bat this back and forth.
It's interesting because my one is in response to I'm in the transition. I've lost a job. I'm in the moment.
Yeah.
How can I own the journey?
Retaking the agency.
And what you just shared is like you weren't in control of what just happened to you.
And sometimes you are. Sometimes it's like deliberate.
I've lost a partner, or It's interesting because both of them you may have had influence in arriving at those decision points.
Yeah.
Like part of why I lost a job apparently is because I was just working at a different pace and speed, because that was probably me trying to grieve.
Yeah.
You know?
3 months and I was definitely not working at my normal pace.
And then in a relationship, a lot of the times we're not saying like it depends on the relationship, but the reason that we're breaking up is 100% because of who that person was and how they were showing up. It was nothing to do with me or how I was showing up.
No, sadly, rarely the case.
So there's some influence there.
Yeah.
Even in taking ownership of like, all right, I'm going to own this journey going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me it's important to acknowledge that we don't have full control. because I think, and also, I don't know how you feel about this, but sorry to anyone who's ever said this to me in a well-meaning way, but I probably did want to scream in your face. Like this idea of like everything happens for a reason.
It's hard to accept in the moment when you're going
I
through
just don't think it's true.
things.
I really struggle with it. Like going through big grief, like, what's the reason? Show me the reason that, like it.
I think. Can we discuss this?
Yeah.
I think understanding and reason are two different things. I think that there can be logical reasons why something's happened that is beyond my comprehension. And because I don't understand it, does that mean that I don't acknowledge there's a reason for it? So, for example, I don't understand why I went backpacking and my dad passed away at that moment. I don't understand it, but I accept that this is a part of life, and looking back, connecting the dots, look what's come from that moment. And at one point I'm going to leave and my children are going to be without me, hopefully when they're adults. And I have to accept that shortness of life, even though I don't fully understand it or when it's going to happen or how it happened or why it's happening in that moment, especially if it's too soon.
Yeah. I think
know you're seeing it from a different angle.
I agree with that. No, I really like that framing, because I actually really agree with that, and I've been talking a lot about.
But do feel free to challenge me.
But I think that personally, I see a difference between acceptance and understanding.
Yeah.
And what grates on me is the idea that there's some like purpose in like I've lost my favorite person in the world, and
you can't justify that.
Like and let's not try. But I think what you're getting at, I think is, I lost my mum now 8 years ago, and I have accepted it, right? It happened. I will never understand it.
Yeah.
But actually, I've released the need to understand it, to be able to enjoy what I remember, to be able to, because there's a period
I like that language, releasing the need to understand it.
And actually, I feel this really strongly at the moment because I'm going through this big breakup. And part of what is so hard is you want to like do this post-mortem, and you want to make sure that you never make the same mistakes. You're never feeling that level of heartbreak. Simple. And you want to understand, almost so you can check that you can't like change something and fix it. But actually, I think one of the things I'm working on right now is like, I will never understand.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's not introspection I can do. That doesn't mean there's not work I can do. But actually, there are things I will never understand because I'm not the other person.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't mean that you're broken and you need to be fixed. It could be compatibility. It could be.
And it doesn't mean I can't respect it. Because I think there's also this thing that in order to, and I don't always get this right, but there's this thing I think of like, I'm so desperate to understand sometimes, but actually what I'm desperate to is not understand, it's to persuade. And sometimes there's this like, because I'm often have such strong conviction that I'm like, well, if I just make you see it my way, you'll get it.
Right.
And so for me, there's this point of actually reaching and not there, working towards it, but this acceptance of I'm not going to understand. And I somehow have to accept that, because otherwise I'm just going to be rubbing a raw patch for years to come and not able to move on. So I think there is.
But I think you're owning the journey. The fact like I'm not there yet. When you just said that, I was like, she's owning the journey. But
also like it's, I think we're talking about transitional periods. Like, I think this is almost why we wanted to touch on it. You can, like in so many respects, I have made the decision of where I am today. Like it was a joint decision, and it wasn't me alone, but it was definitely me equal part, right? I had clarity on what I needed, that I worked really hard to get, and I really attacked from all angles to make sure it was real clarity and not some unconscious thing that I hadn't worked through. No, I have real clarity on what I need, and then a conviction that like I have to live the life I don't regret. I have to chase that, even though I desperately regret that means I can't be with the person I'm in love with. And so I think you can have like this, like in lots of ways, this true sense of agency of like, I chose this, I'm deciding to walk away, and yet the transition period is awful.
Do you think it's hard to have inner peace during a season of transition?
I think so. I think that's maybe the best thing to accept is that like you can't expect that of yourself. And I think the problem is when you're in that transition, you're so desperate to be there that you almost attack yourself for not feeling comfortable in it, or at least I do. You saw this coming, you should be prepared for it.
Yeah, it's not fair to say that.
But it's also not what you'd expect of anyone else,
No, of course.
right? And so I think why we say this is not to scare people off making transitions, and not to say every transition is going to feel as heavy or as raw. Some transitions are incredibly healing because it feels more of a letting go and a stepping into than it does of a.
As you're speaking, to be honest, I feel like there's stages to transitions. Like in that in between space, when that thing has happened and you're going towards this next thing, I feel like it's almost like, the team forming stages, like norming, storming, performing. I feel like there's probably stages within a transition. And right now, what you're describing with breakup, it sounds like the one of the earlier stages within a transition. But then I wonder if you do get to a point in a transition where, like, you do get in a peace where you do feel like you have more clarity and certainty, or do you feel like that only happens once you're into that next act?
No, you know what it is. So when I lost my mum, I'd been seeing a wonderful counsellor for about 6 months because I was finding it really hard seeing her be really ill, and so when she died, I went back to that woman who was also a specialist in bereavement. She worked for a cancer charity, so she was really in the space, and she knew me really well by this point. So first session back after my mum died, I don't think it was the first thing she said, but she kind of said, Hattie, I feel like I know you quite well by now. One of the things I want to flag early, knowing you, is the theory of the stages of grief as a linear process has been very debunked. And the reason she wanted to flag that is like, I like steps. Hattie, step 1, I like the idea that my effort can equal my movement, my pace.
Momentum, yeah.
I really like that. Sometimes I beat myself up with it, but I really like the idea that like I can put in more work and get forwards. And so what she rightly predicted was that in this process I would want a path to follow that was linear, and the ability to influence that path by working through it.
This is how I sounded when I got let go of that job. I was trying to outwork the situation.
But and I don't know if you experience this. Curious, like what she basically said is the stages are about right? Denial, anger, acceptance are all in there, but they're definitely not linear. You're going to ricochet between them.
Interesting.
And at times I felt like a complete pinball machine of like, I'm accepting, yay, I've done grief, completed, whoop whoop. Next, oh my gosh, I'm in an absolute pit of despair. Next, I'm in complete denial, and like back and forth for 5 years.
It's not linear.
No.
It can be like, that's so true.
And did you find that with losing the job?
Yeah, I mentioned I was angry at that point, isn't it? I was angry. And then there was acceptance, like, right, I'm going to use that as a driving factor to motivate me to, at first before anger, I was in denial. It's not me, it's them. No, they're not right. They don't know me. I'm going to show them how good I am. So all of those 3 that you just mentioned, I definitely ping pong. It wasn't a linear. Yeah. And I went back to, and even when I'm sharing it now, some of it's coming up and surfacing.
Yeah, it's true. And the body remembers, this is the and I think for anyone who is approaching or in a transitional period, the only thing they do end.
Yeah, it's easy to look back now and connect the dots and say, I'm so grateful that happened because look where I am today. But in the moment, don't tell me that and don't give me that advice because I'm not going to take it on board and it's not helpful. And
again, it's where sometimes like lived experience is helpful because you can look back on a transition period and think, how strongly did I feel that this was going to be forever? And for me, I literally lived my worst nightmare. Like, my mum was my favourite person from the time I was, like, super young. I was like, what's your biggest fear? Losing my mum. Don't know why. Just was. And so, like, I lived that worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. Like, I really am. And actually, like, it doesn't mean you don't miss them with the same ferocity. It doesn't mean that there's a beautiful picture of grief. I love it so much, and I found it really helpful. I come back to it a lot. Which is this idea that, like, we think that grief is this kind of almost like a big ball, and what will happen over time is the ball will shrink. And actually, it's this idea that the ball stays the exact same size. What happens is that around it, your life grows.
Yeah,
so
I knew you were going to say that.
Proportionally, the ball is smaller.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Often for transition periods, we put pressure on, like, why isn't the ball shrinking? Why don't I feel the same? Why don't I feel less strongly about this? Well, maybe actually just life is growing around it.
Yeah, I agree completely. And another transition that we touched on was like traveling. And I remember with that next job that I had, it required me to move to South Africa.
Yes.
And I look back and I was like, did I ever feel lonely in that experience? And I didn't, because I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be alone in order to go through the process, to be like, okay, now I'm alone. I can think, I can reflect, I can wonder and discover what I want to do next. That was a period of time which allowed me to start feeding my curiosity again, like double tapping on the things that I'm interested in, like sort my life out. It felt like that was tidying up my mental room and my emotional room. That time out in South Africa. And then again, I had another South African family that would invite me over on a Sunday, do prayers, eat dinner together, and they took me in, and I probably needed that at that time, looking back. And I remember saying thank you years later to this individual, because he was a partner at the firm, and it's not atypical for a partner to let you into their private life in such an intimate way. But I just thanked him because it was so significant what he was doing for me at that time, without having the conversation, but just by the act of love that they were showing.
I love that.
And it set me up in a big way, because then I went to San Francisco, got involved with startups and VCs, but the springboard was that quiet time slowing down in South Africa for about 1.5 years.
And I think actually that's a really lovely point, is that twofold, knowing what you need. So that solitude was what you needed. And actually, like, very different for different people, right? You know, for me, when I'm in a transition period, what I need to feel like at the you know, that was your like base, and then you need the top ups.
Yes.
Whereas I'm the opposite way around. My base needs to be like, how am I completely scooped up? Like, am I complete? And you know, like, have I got people I can be with when I need to be with them? And that gives me like real then base security to be able to go, okay, well, I'll take some alone time when I need it, because I know that when I need it, there's always people there. And I find the other one quite unsettling. But actually, maybe a good point about transition periods, I often find they're a really good time to do something that scares you, that can give you a different perspective on yourself. So I am struggling with the alone time. I'm working on it quite hard because I now live alone again. And, you know, I'm at that life stage where a lot of friends have partners and families. So you do have time alone when they're just doing their family stuff. And I know my friends experienced that when I was in a couple, and you know, my single friends were fighting that battle themselves.
Some parents add that pressure on, like, when are you going to get a job when you finish uni, or when are you going to get married if you're a daughter. Like, I hear about those stories a lot as well.
Yeah. I had quite a few in the lead up to the breakup, which I knew was potentially coming. Got asked a lot, well, so when are you going to get married? What about kids? People start putting the pressure on. They really do. But I think it comes back to your point, knowing what you need. Yeah. And knowing what you need is really personal. Like, our two examples. Like as you were talking, I was thinking, actually, that backpacking trip at 21 is what made me feel like, Andy, if you need to, you can always go to the wilderness. You can always go into the desert. You can always go into alone, and then come back out of nature and join us again. And I feel like that's what I did in South Africa. And like, even when I'm in Ghana, I'm like, I'm gonna spend some time at my mum's in the countryside, and that's like alone in nature again. So there's something about that that's recharging for me, and it allows me to recalibrate. But then personally for you, it's like, I want the support network, I want the love, I want the people around me. Actually, I'm getting used to being alone again. And for where you are in this season, that's right for you. And where I was in that season, that was right for me. And then, like, noticing where there might be a good opportunity to challenge. So, like, having said I'm struggling with the alone thing, I'm actually about to go and do 10 days solo traveling in Japan. Which is amazing. Courageous. And I know I've solo traveled before. I know you come back with this, like, deep sense of, like, I can do anything. It is really, really empowering. But I think maybe, again, a lot of our themes have come back to when life feels heavy and knotty, and you're doing the hard work of untangling. Like, how do you make it more fun? How do you turn it into a game? How do you give yourself opportunities to feel some relief, some growth in there.
And what is an example of something you're going to do from a play perspective to make that Japan trip more fun?
Oh, that's a good question. I've thought about how to make it more creative. So I'm definitely either gonna buy a new camera out there or
that's fun.
I know, or take my current camera, but we'll see which one I do. The ADHD in me is like, I need a new kit for a new hobby. But, you know, we'll see if I can, back to the financial
well-being. Step one, taking pictures is good
I'll
enough.
take pictures.
Honestly.
I'll take pictures. It's back to our financial episode.
Our phones are so good now.
No, that's true, it's true.
It's more that
I want to
thinking
be off
picture
my phone.
first.
But you know what? I want to be off my phone because I want to actually give myself a chance to not be like waiting for someone to text me to feel something.
Beautiful, great.
So that I'm definitely going to do. I'm also going to write. I haven't written in so long. Not journaling, like physical. Creative writing.
Great.
Because I used to love creative writing.
Do you still love it?
I haven't done it in so long, I don't even know anymore.
I've got to honour that, yeah.
So I'm going to give myself permission to play and write little short stories about people I see.
Can you tell me, is there a process? You know how I like steps? Creative writing, like, is there a process for you? Where do you start?
With creative writing?
Yeah.
I honestly can't remember. I'm going to have to make it up again because it's been so long. I think I had like some ideas. So when I'm traveling, I'm going to write little short stories about the people I see. So like make up stories about them.
Wow.
I think that's quite a fun way. And
that's cool.
I'm going to try and write like descriptions of the place I'm seeing that are like as rich as I want to. And I'm going to try and write poetry again. I have been doing a bit of poetry recently and I really love it.
You got to take some pictures for your journal.
Yeah, definitely will.
I mean, even of those artifacts of the creative writing.
No, I definitely will. And I think the other thing I'm trying not to do is to try not to like erase this period.
Yeah.
Because I think I always want to erase the transition periods.
Yeah.
I want to like rush through them, be done with it, and then like pretend it never happened.
Interesting.
So that I can just be in the good bits.
Yeah.
Like I do want to remember my highlights reel of my life, and I think I need to remember that a thing I've been thinking about a lot recently is, and I don't know where we were going to talk about this, but I think we said we'd mention it. I use an app on my phone that I love, that I have to breathe to get into my Instagram, LinkedIn, emails.
Yeah, it's about 30 seconds, isn't it?
Super
it's
short.
Like you click on the app, you're like,
super short, but it feels super long.
But it slows you down.
Instant gratification.
It slows you down immediately.
But it has this quote about like live every day of your life. So the quotes come up and they're all different, but that one has been sitting with me a lot recently because I always get the urge in a transition to press fast forward. Like if you could skip your next transition, what do you think your next transition will be? And if you could skip it, would you?
What do I think my next transition will be? A lot of these transitions have happened to me. The transition that I'm in now is like on the journey of moving house, of selling one and acquiring another and doing up that house. I've never been on that journey of doing up a house before. So it's both daunting, it's making me anxious.
What makes you anxious?
The cost of it all, never done it before. Cost of mistakes, how costly those mistakes are in terms of time and labor. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And I don't know if I have the capacity to be the insurance policy by learning all these things myself. Not even I don't know, I know I cannot.
I was going to say,
I know
do we not know that?
I know I cannot. So that's not easy, but at the same time, I hold on to, like, I want to have fun in this transition and not feel guilty about it.
And actually, it's so easy to be stressed by that.
Japan trip even. I was like, oh, what fun things is she going to go and attend? She's going to go sumo wrestling. I was like, actually, no, I need to have fun in this transition period.
What would that look like?
Guilty about that. Having fun could be like we all mock up and start painting together. Like little silly things like that. You know, doing jobs together and creating memories together throughout this period. Like we're probably gonna have to move into temporary accommodation, maybe in my mum's little tiny flat, but having fun while we do that. Board games, different things, it's a different environment.
Love that.
You know, get to know the local parks, the local areas. You know, fall in love with that area before we move elsewhere. Like, let's make the most of it while we're here in these moments. And
I think this is a lot of what we're getting at, is like taking the agency to reframe so that the things that we can reframe into positives can be genuine positives. Without writing off that some things are just going to feel rubbish. Feel hard, feel anxious, feel heartbreaking, feel deeply unstabilizing. And I talk a lot about this quote from the Bear Hunt, the children's book. You can't go over it.
Did I tell you my son loves that book? No, like runs
Joseph
up and down
is a
laughing.
future philosopher.
He loves that book because I've heard you quote that book before. Actually,
Yeah.
I think on your podcast. Was it your
Yeah,
podcast?
probably.
Yeah, but anyway, can you share the context?
Yeah, so it's a book about a family going on a bear hunt one day. Unclear why, unclear who thought that was a good health and safety decision, but whatever. They go on this bear hunt, and along the way they hit these obstacles: long, swishy grass, deep, sticky mud, a river.
It's very entertaining, by the way. Swish, swash, swish.
Is that what makes them laugh?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's how the author reads it on YouTube, anyway.
Oh, nice. I'm like, why aren't you reading it, Andy?
Well, Joseph likes the video. I don't know if he's as entertained when I mimic him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good.
Yeah. Right now, there's influences in his life at his age, and
Okay,
he's
it's
one
not
of
you.
those.
So every time they hit one of these obstacles, as well as good sound effects, there's always the same refrain. Oh no, can't go under it, can't go over it. I guess we'll have to go through it. And it's something my mum quoted a lot in her last years. A lot. Quoted our entire life, but like the cadence increased, right? We were going through it a lot more. But it's something I come back to a lot, and I think it would be if I had like a marching song for a transition period. Oh no, can't go under it, can't go over it. Oh, I guess we'll have to go through it.
There's something peaceful, I think, in that acceptance, isn't it, of the courage to go through it, knowing that it's a thick like mud or grass, but I've got to get through it in order to get to the other side. There's not many alternative way rounds here.
And I think, again, trying to make the other side something that feels worth getting to. And even if you have had no choice in the process and the other side isn't as good as where you've been, how can you make it, like, so for me, in grief, the other side is not better, right? The other side is always net worse. But the other side actually is that I'm going to be able to tell stories about my mum and laugh while I'm telling them. I'm going to be able to go and speak to her friends and family and learn new stories about her and love it, rather than feel like I'm too scared to do it because I emotionally don't know if I can handle it.
Right.
I'm going to be able to hear her voice, all these things. Like, I'm not going to worry that I'm going to forget.
Resilience that's built up.
But also, like, those are things to look forward to. I look forward to the day that I like have a lovely dream about her and it's special and magic. And actually, I think, how can you give yourself the thing worth stepping to, and make it worth it? Because I think the problem I always have with the bear hunt as an adult is like they get to the end and they find a bear and then they're like, oh whoops, we didn't mean to do this, and they run home. I'm like, guys, you literally went through every obstacle to get here. You didn't even check you want to meet a bear. Like, the whole premise of this book, going on a bear hunt, and then you meet a bear and you're like, oh whoops, this is bigger than us and scary, and you literally run home and the bear runs home after you.
I think there's something there around like this sometimes unhelpful piece of advice, but fall in love with the journey and not the outcome. And I say sometimes unhelpful because both in that case where it's a bear and the outcome's not too great, but also in life, like when we're going through it, it's not always easy to fall in love with a process, even though we must learn to trust this process that we're going through, especially during the time.
And what do you think about people who, because I guess some people listening might be like ahead of a transition, and it's almost fear of the transition that's putting them off taking the leap, right?
Well, you
because
hear this
actually
a lot,
you want the long term, but you don't want the short term.
Well, I find that this conversation comes up a lot when I speak to professionals who are employed, who have ideas that they really want to pursue, but feel that they can't afford to pursue them.
Yeah.
And it's not always starting a business. Sometimes it's even going freelance because there's a perception that I have to live month to month and I'm not sure how variable my income's going to be. I don't know how long my contracts are going to be, or I might be unemployed in between periods, or I can get let go of easily, even though that's a placebo effect because a permanent employer can also let you go easily.
But maybe with less notice, I guess.
Yeah, so I think all of those limiting beliefs have some truth to them, like you touched on in our limiting beliefs episode. But that's what can paralyze us sometimes from even choosing to go on this quest and this transition, because of like all of the reasons why I could fail. And I think a fail safe that I used to tell myself was, especially with careers and jobs, was my worst case scenario is I can walk back into a similar type of job that I just did in 3 months or 6 months time if I fail at this new quest. And I've done that before.
And I think back to our point about the kind of last episode about financial mindset, I think you and I are both actually really big advocates for don't quit your job before you've got a bit of a buffer financially, so that you can keep making the right decisions.
Absolutely.
Because the amount of founders I see or freelancers who quit their job without enough runway, and they panic too quickly, and they can't stay in that transitional period, which is often a norm. And again, appreciating that doesn't work if you've been made redundant, and there are cases where this doesn't work, and we're definitely not trying to say that this is like, here's your silver bullet to everything. But if you can, like, what do you need? And actually this is again, you don't always have the foresight, but if you really ask yourself, so I knew I was potentially this relationship was potentially gonna end when it ended, so I had a long run-up period of knowing that we were having conversations and it might end. And I therefore had the opportunity to say, well, what do I need to do before that to be in the best possible place? So I took more time off in August because I was really exhausted, and I knew that level of exhaustion wasn't going to help. And I was in a position financially to do that, so I had some financial freedom to take more time off, which was great. And I really didn't work in that period at all. I put my laptop down, switched off, really, really needed. And then when I came back, I deliberately had like designed parts of my life where I hadn't overcommitted to social things that I knew I might find hard. I hadn't committed to work that I knew I might find hard. So again, I think also you can't mitigate everything, but not just saying this transition is going to happen, but really what could I do to make it more fun, more easy, in inverted commas, relatively.
I feel like you just touched on it, to be honest. You gave some real examples there of things that you did intentionally. I felt like what you're describing there is actually how to be intentional when going through a transition, and how can you be proactive about that intentionality, from having the conversation up front, even though it's not easy conversations that you're having. For you, it was like taking some space and time off because you're actually realizing that you're getting burnt out emotionally on both ends, from work and like in the relationship. Like maybe it's not a great period to have certain social activities. Maybe it's not a great period to go partying and get drunk, or so it's certain conscious decisions that you're like, do you know what, like I'm actually going to be intentional and thoughtful around this transition and how I want to go through it. And even though you said like I'll do the easier stuff work-wise, actually I think it doesn't make anything easy because of the fact you're carrying this weight while still executing on the work.
But you know what, the other thing I think that does make it easier is if you can communicate to people that you're in a transitional period. And so I think that's a big thing in itself, right? No, but I think that's hard for a lot of people actually, because there might be a stigma of shame, of failure, of how they're going to judge me. Is this a big enough thing, right? Like I kind of
am I being too emotional? Am I sharing too much? There's
professional. Am I being professional?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can hold you back from having a conversation. And that's why we spoke about environments and communities, because you do need that safe space of trusted people that 100%. You can turn to and just be honest and just I need to lean on you. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. And we all need versions of that in our lives. Even when I mentioned being in South Africa and I could still always speak to my brothers, to my best friend who became my wife. There's certain people that I could always speak to at a drop of a hat at any time. So the communication didn't change. And we were speaking about it the other day, that how incredible technology is now around like how the different ways we can communicate on voice, on text messages, on video, sharing Instagram reels, games. There's so many different ways we can communicate, and games actually is a really important one for me, because I feel like it's to switch off and have slow conversation, because I could be playing Mario Kart, let's say with my daughter, and we're playing 80% of the time and just having fun and laughing, but 20% of the time we're having real conversations. But actually the game is a vehicle in order for us to have that conversation. And actually I think that's a really nice point you touched on. Not that I'm saying this is but it reminded me of it, not that I'm saying that's what's going on, but there have been studies that obviously men typically find it harder to be, men do typically find it harder to be vulnerable with other men. We're not training them that's okay, we're not giving them role models for it. I've got to speak to my men out there as well, to the man them, because sometimes it takes just one of the friends to be brave, to say that, like, I really want to have this conversation with you too, just to open up the doors. And you'll be surprised how receptive it is, because as men, a lot of times we love each other, we just don't tell each other that we do. And I've got one particular group of friends, and for the last 2 years, every Monday morning, we have like a prayer time together before we start the week. 90% of that time together, we are chatting and speaking about what we're going through, and our families and our partners and our kids and work, and is such a holistic conversation. Probably like 2 to 5% of that time is actually in prayer. But prayer was the vehicle, the thing that we said we're going to get together on. But actually, that whole time together is like the prayer, because we're all like sharing how we are feeling and what we're going through. And those two are the first two I just thought of when you said like having people to turn to in that way. I find it harder actually to have certain emotional conversations sometimes with my brothers than I do with those non-biological brothers who are my friends, because of the nature of the relationships.
And actually that brings to mind something which is often, you don't even know what you might change by being the one to be vulnerable first.
Yeah.
Because so recently I've been in quite a lot of founders groups, and I was really not in a great place, huge uncertainty coming. I mean, in some ways a transition period where I was like, am I transitioning to a breakup? Am I transitioning to my forever partnership? Don't know what's going on. And so often when I would turn up at founder things and we'd be talking about, what's on your mind and what's stressing you, it would often be about the finances in the business, because I was almost trying to get myself to a place where I could take it off, the financial pressure of lots of things. And actually, what often happened, because I was really in an emotional place, and these people were my peers and I didn't actually have to pretend, I would get really emotional. So I had multiple times this happened, be in a group, there were different groups, and I was often the first person to share for random, or I'm just going to not psych myself out, I'm just going to do it, reasons, and would often start thinking, I'm not going to get emotional, and then I get really emotional and be like sobbing basically. And it happened multiple times that this happened, and then the whole dynamic in the room of how everyone else shared changed.
Right.
And people,
that mirroring effect.
And people said, I wasn't going to bring this, but actually, that's made me realize I was going to bring something that's more surface level. But actually, now I think about it, this is what's
so powerful.
And we had multiple people crying. I mean, one of the rooms we had like a facilitator was meant to be coming around to check on all of us, and they like knocked, and like one of the women like banged against the door, was like, no, don't come in here. We're like, we're fine, leave us alone. All the women were floods of tears inside the room, like, oh my god. And
wow.
but it was that, and I
permission
in
to
that
share.
moment, and for the days after, I definitely didn't feel, I had like a vulnerability hangover. I didn't feel like, oh, I've unlocked this for the group. I felt like, oh, I completely brought the mood down, and now everyone's but actually looking back, I can
But what
see.
did people say to you after the session, or in private or one-to-one? What did people come around to you to say?
It was like a complete mix of complete compassion for where I was and why it was feeling so heavy and so hard,
Right.
and also for some a gratitude that it gave them the space to bring what they needed
Right. And isn't that beautiful? Both compassion and permission to share. I wasn't going to bring this to the group, but because you've given me permission to share, I actually want to share this thing that's on my chest. Wow.
and that they don't need to be as guarded, or as, I think also there is a thing of all those things that you're thinking before you share something, someone else might be thinking those same things. Is this professional? Can I do it in this context? And actually you might be giving someone else a model to go, I didn't feel that way when they did it, so maybe it's safe for me to do it too.
Right.
But that's hard. I mean, I definitely didn't feel that in the moment, or as I said, for days afterwards, and this is months after, and I'm now like, oh, what a great outcome. But that is hindsight is 2020. But I'm going to try really hard to remember that, so that next time I'm in that space, it's a learned lesson that I don't have to emotionally go back through the same hangover. I talk about vulnerability hangover, that kind of sense of like, oh my gosh, what's everyone really thinking? And
I want to do a quick one before we start to round up. What things do you do to help fill your cup so that you're not pouring from an empty cup when you're there for others or in service of your work? When you're going through these transitions, especially.
Yeah. I think you touched on it about, your non-negotiables in the financial episode, sleep. trying really hard to give myself like the basics.
No, good.
Sleep, eat vegetables,
Good.
move my body in ways that feel good and interesting and fun, not ways that feel like punishment. See more friends, get outside a lot more. Like that one is actually feeling really big right now. Get outside more. I love living in London, in the city, but I really, when I think I'm in transition, I need something slightly different. To your point, like I need green, I need wilderness, I need some of that. So getting out, and I think going back to habits like journaling, like meditation. I found myself pausing them for a few weeks when I was really going through it, because it almost felt too horrible to sit with. Like, I don't want to sit and just be sad. I don't think that was the right call, but I have compassion that that's where I was. But then it's okay, I'm not going to beat myself up that I didn't do it. I'm just going to return to it because I know these things help me. How about you?
I think definitely journaling is one of them for me. Feeling like I've got it out of my head and my heart onto my tracker. Both to distill it, but also to mirror back to me and understand, like, is that how I really feel? Is that what I'm really thinking? And it's usually both of them, actually. Like, I'm distilling what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, and like understanding, is that really how I feel? Is that really how I think? And that sometimes leaves me almost like take two. Okay, this is how I really feel about what's going on. And sometimes a part of that journaling activity is like, so what, in terms of like, what do I want to do about this? I want to take it into my prayer time with Shopi and Maz on Monday. I want to take it to Lynette at this time and have that conversation. I want to take it to, I want to do something with it often, not just reflect and hold it and sit on it. And it's in a weird way, it relates back to that board you can't afford concept, but within this arena. Like, who are the people that I want to take it to in order to help me to start filling my cup again?
I love that.
And then I maintain certain things that I don't want to change, like watching anime or playing games, or what is the thing that completely switches me off and feels like I've transported to a different world, and I'm just like maintaining that, and I don't want to change that just because I'm going through this transition. I want to keep certain things stable. I don't want my whole life to feel like it's unstable.
That's really
I
nice.
think that's quite important when we're going through these periods. And then the fun thing, I love the fun thing. I'm like, like reminding myself that life is to be lived, and having fun is a reminder of that for me.
I think just picking up on that, I love the idea of like, what are you keeping, what are you cutting, and what are you adding? Because I think often we try and add everything. What I do, like, I'm gonna start eating 20 million
100%.
vegetables a day, and I'm gonna start to.
I'm guilty of that as well.
And actually, what I'm doing is just like another kind of burnout, which is putting more weights on myself to be a new version of myself.
Outworking the situation.
Yeah, and I think that rounds us off nicely with that initial quote of, when we don't really feel like ourselves in the transition, I think what we're saying is that's normal, and actually be playful in refinding who you are in the next stage. It doesn't have to be tied to the old stage. There might be some new stuff in there, but don't cut everything because you're moving forward.
Do you have a journaling prompt in mind?
I have some thoughts, but I almost think we should separate it into different use cases.
Okay.
So like one for if you're putting off a transition, one for if you're in a transition, and one if life is currently stable, but you want to do some paying it forward for your next transition.
Interesting. Okay. I've got one for in transition.
Okay.
What are the things that you want to keep stable during this transition period?
Oh, that's great. I love that. I'm going to do that one. One for if you're maybe putting off a transition, I would say three things. One is, One is, why am I putting off this transition? What am I scared of? Name it. Call it out. There is a psychology and a neurology that says when we name the negative emotions, it actually reduces the feeling. Number two, and you know, back to some of our questions, like, ask yourself, is that really true? Is that a fear, or is that unknown? Number two, what can I do to prepare for a transition, to make it easier? But don't make that list be infinite, because otherwise it becomes a procrastination tool. So let's make it finite. And number three, what's going to help you avoid procrastinating so long? Where do I want to be on the other side of this transition? Can I imagine how I'm going to feel? Can I imagine some wins? Even if I don't get to choose the wins I want, what is in my agency and control?
Great.
And then finally, for people who are kind of listening to this, they relate to maybe some of it, they've been through transitions, they're not in one yet, how can you pay it forward for your next transition? Any ideas?
I think while you're in that good season and you're not going through a transition, it's so important to gain that self-awareness we spoke about at the beginning of the episode. So what comes easy to me but difficult to others? I've done that exercise, you've done that exercise, now it's time for you to do that exercise.
I love that. And if you did it already in our first episode, then it might be worth revisiting. It's been a few weeks, ask a different group of people.
Yeah.
But also I think maybe there's something in how can you almost think through if everything shifted today, your work, your home, your family, what elements of yourself would you lean into that would help you get through that?
And outside of yourself, connecting to our environments and community episode, who are the 2 or 3 people that you would want to turn to share how you're feeling as you go through this period, and why would you want to turn to them for support?
Beautiful. So hopefully something in there for everyone. And we'd love to know, reply to our newsletter, let us know what you come up with, let us know if you come up with some other questions or some riffs off the exercises. We always love to hear how you're adapting the exercises because it gives so much inspiration, and we'll always try and share those on our social media so you can get some more inspiration if you want between episodes.
And look, we're really keen to know how you're finding the podcast as well so far, so let us know how you're finding it. Give us some feedback and reviews. Just reply to the newsletter.
And if you haven't already, like, follow, subscribe, give us 5 stars, please. Thank you.
That's our first plug, which shows that we're here for the right reason.